Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Malicious Compliance. Story 1. You need to leave my car alone if you say so. This is not my story but my friend Adam's. Adam is a retired police officer and this takes place in the mid-90s, back when Adam was a beat cop maybe a year or two into his service. At the time this story takes place, a firebug had targeted several businesses over the course of a 3-month period. The fires were put out but they were getting bigger and bigger, causing thousands of dollars in damage. Everyone was on edge and the police were patrolling the area every night to try and catch Mr. Firebug. On this particular night in the middle of February, Adam and his partner, Rick, drew the short stick and thus were assigned to patrol part of the area. While on patrol, he notices a classic Mercedes-Benz pulling up to a house and a familiar lady dressed in a thick fur coat steps out. He groans, it's the wife of a local business owner that every officer in this town have had the displeasure to ticket for various parking/traffic violations. It would have been fine if she were a nice lady or something. But no. Her 3 default sentences were, "Don't you know who I am? Where's your manager/supervisor? And I'll have your job." Seriously, she was a Karen before Karens were even a thing. Rick points out to Adam that Karen had parked right by a fire hydrant. Par for the course. Adam gets ready and steps out of the squad car. "Good evening, Mrs. Entitled, ma'am," Adam said. "What are you doing here?" Karen bellowed. Adam guessed that's the Karen version of the word hello. "Working the beat. You do know you parked next to a fire hydrant?" "So?" Karen said. "I'm suggesting you move it before I write you a ticket. I'm not in the mood for extra paperwork tonight. Listen. You need to leave my car alone. Or I'll have your job." With that, Karen storms off to the house, goes inside and slams the door. Adam thought if you say so and proceeded to check the outside of the car for any more violations and wishing that being a bitch was a federal offense. As he's putting the ticket under the windshield wiper, the call everyone's been dreading comes on the radio. A fire alarm has been triggered. The address? Right across the street. Adam looks over at the building and can see a faint orange glow in the windows on the 2nd floor. He reports the glow. He and Rick get ready in case Mr. Firebug decides to cross their path. Several officers arrive and set a perimeter around the building as the glow gets brighter and brighter. Unfortunately, by the time the fire department gets there, flashover happens and all the windows on the 2nd floor get blown out. It was so hot that Adam felt sweat form on his face. The fire department need to get the hoses set up. But Karen's car is in the way. Using safety hammers, they break the windows and run the hoses through, getting everything set up in record time. During all of the chaos, Karen comes out and she sounds like a banshee that had swallowed an air raid siren. She runs over and tries unhooking the hose from the hydrant. "What are you doing? My car is ruined." It took 2 officers to restrain her and bark at her to go inside and let everyone do their jobs. She actually listened and returned inside. Adam spent the rest of his shift helping with the fire and investigation. It was close to dawn when he returned to the station to finish up. All he wanted was to go home and crawl into bed. That's when his supervisor calls Rick and him over and reports that Karen reported several $1,000s worth of damage. Not only had her windows broken but water had gotten in and froze because it was, again, the middle of February. The supervisor asked them what happened and they reported everything. Fortunately, the dashcam caught a recording of the event. The supervisor shook her head, laughed and said, "Well, you had nothing to do with the car getting damaged, so I consider this closed." A few weeks later, they caught the firebug, a different business owner who was trying to commit insurance fraud. He figured that if several other buildings caught fire, nobody would think he was responsible for burning down his own business. Unfortunately, Karen never did seem to learn her lesson, so she was back to racking up tickets and being a thorn in the police's side. She did have to pay for the damages and the ticket Adam gave her. Story 2. Account for our time, you say? A little backstory. I used to work for the state of Texas at a public university, in the IT desktop support team. Well, my boss's boss did a team meeting and said that he needs to know what we do all day, because he isn't sure we are actually working. You know, we do have goof off time if we don't have any tickets and we clear our tasks for the day. It means we are good at our job, but it meant we were stealing time to the boss's boss, I guess. So he gave us each a notebook and told us to write down the time and day we did anything, and the ticket number if we had one. Well, I did exactly what he wanted. For 2 weeks I wrote down such mundane things as: at 2:33 p.m. entered the bathroom. At 2:34 dropped my pants and sat on the toilet. At 2:35 I started grunting. You get the picture. I accounted for basically every minute of every day, until after 2 weeks he said he doesn't need this anymore and to just make sure we complete our tasks and don't breach this law. Story 3. Excuse me, you want me to wash the windows? This happened more than 3 decades ago, when I was at the beginning of my working career. As a youth I didn't really know upwards from downwards, and I was just happy that I had a steady job and a salary. The job itself didn't matter, as long as I had a job, I was happy. I was an operator of the production machine, which didn't really need higher education to operate, but it required a person to watch over it in case of some production hiccup or another error happened. Mostly the machine run just fine, and the operator's job was to put in material or parts into it every now and then and to watch over it. And that was what I did. All in all, very simple entry-level job. This one day one of my coworkers came to me and told me that our manager required me to wash the windows of the factory today. I was kind of dumbfounded for a moment, and then I laughed and told him sure. At first I thought it was a joke. I told him that I have to watch over my own work here, so is he sure about this? He told me that yes, that's what he was told to tell me. Well, I didn't quite believe what I had heard, and next lunch break I went to look for the manager and asked if it was so. The manager told me that the windows are dirty and haven't been washed for years, so it's time to clean them. And that I should start right away. I was just okay. He was naturally being cheap since he didn't want to hire someone outsider to do it. And wanted to use me as a youngster to do the extra work. I went back to my work spot, thought a little what to do and where to start. Where to get the equipment, etc. Then I turned the machine I was operating off and begun to work with windows. The factory, while it wasn't too large, it wasn't small either. And some of the windows were pretty high up, so it wasn't quick work either at cases. But I was told what to do and so I complied. My estimate was that it would take least several days if not whole week to finish the job. After second day someone noticed that the parts were beginning to pile up at my spot, which was of course because there was no one there doing the process and the machine was offline. On third day someone found me washing the windows at one corner of the factory and asked what the hell I was doing. Everyone were worried where I was and why the production line had stalled up since no one was operating the machine where I was supposed to be. They practically pulled me back to the manager and told what had happened. I explained that I had been doing what I was told earlier, and I was about halfway done. And that I can't be in 2 places at once. There were other managers present as well, and they all turned to look at the one which had instructed me at first place. We workers were told to leave, and I was told to go to my original job and start up the machine ASAP. And that if I want, I can do as much overtime as I want until the production quota has been reached back. I believe they had some discussion among the managers behind the closed doors after we left. It took for a while, but I netted nice overtime bonus from that in the end. They also hired someone to wash rest of the windows as well. Story 4. You want me to wrap your presents, okay? Every year my dad simply refuses to wrap his own presents for Christmas. He pushes that task on to either myself or, for gifts for me, my brother. This year he said he'd give me $5 to wrap a present for my mom, so I agreed. He came in 2 minutes later with another thing for me to wrap. I told him that it was $5 more to do that. He refused, and we went back and forth for a while and I never agreed to anything. I wrapped the paid for present very nicely, but as for the other one, I wrapped it in a way that completely undermined the whole purpose of wrapping a gift in the first place in a nice clear plastic. That way, for everyone playing White Elephant, they'll know not only what it is, but who put it in as well. My dad almost always puts in a Visa gift card with 1 cent on it. When he saw it at first he didn't think it was wrapped, but I told him to look closer and to see that it was indeed wrapped. He ended up not caring, but I'll get to see how everyone else reacts tomorrow. He even complimented me on my wrapping skills, kind of backfired, but I tried to comply in the least helpful way possible. Uneasy face. Story 5. Sporting committee overcharged. We overplayed the $30 million malicious move. I was the mayor of a municipality that was tasked with hosting a large sporting event in my small European country, but only for athletes from within our nation. People from all over would come to my town, and we were tasked with housing the athletes and constructing a sporting facility. The sporting committee gave us an estimate of around 12 million. We blindly took their word. However, after signing the contract, we realized that we underestimated it. It would actually be over 30 million. If we backed out now, then we'd have to pay a heavy fine to the sporting organization. Enter our malicious compliance plan. Hotels? No siree, we plan to have the athletes stay in home shares with local families. Sporting facility? Thanks to our municipality's influence on coding laws and building classifications, we classified the facility as a temporary community facility. This allowed us to use portable toilets instead of connect the building to the sewer, and having other cost-saving measures. Seating? Nowhere did the contract specify that the sporting arena required spectator seats. So, we planned an arena without any. All these adjustments would bring the cost down to a mere 4 million. We got the plans and permits and were ready to start constructing. However, word travels fast. The sporting committee caught wind of our plans. They pleaded for a change, but their contract's legalese was lackluster. The fallout? They had to pay us 3 million to terminate the contract, and now, they've heavily lawyered up their legalese to avoid any such issues in the future. Story 6. Okay, it will ship today. A friend of mine did this. When I was a tech at a calibration lab, we had a torque wrench arrive for calibration. Now, to do the job right, you must let the wrench sit in the lab until it has reached the same temperature as the lab and the calibration standards. It was winter, and the wrench was cold, unheated shipping truck, warehouse, etc. So this wrench was put on the shelf to acclimate, which would take 24 to 48 hours. That afternoon, one of the salespeople told the torque tech that this wrench must ship today, because it was a big customer and he wanted to make a good impression. The tech obviously said that it couldn't, because it had to acclimate before being calibrated. This salesperson was the sort of irresistible force who thought that no one could, or would, ever stand in his way. He was also not supposed to be in the lab or in any way involved in production. He was also kind of an $a hole. So the tech again explained that the wrench could not be calibrated until at least the next day. Otherwise the calibration would not be a good one, and we don't do it like that. That's when the salesperson exploded and flew his B*TCH flag high. Repeated several times that it must ship today. After the 10-minute tirade had ended, the tech just told him it will ship today. So the salesperson huffed back to the sales department, gratified that he'd got his way again. As soon as he was gone, the tech processed the order as a return as is and put it on the shipping cart. The wrench did indeed ship that day. Without a calibration certificate. The customer was miffed. The subsequent investigation did not show the salesperson in a good light. He was officially reprimanded. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.